With ever-increasing threats targeting our national security, there is one intelligence solutions company defining the edge of what's possible. Nightwing. What gives Nightwing the edge? It's how we serve who we support. Our elite workforce is at the forefront of innovation with an intense focus on developing leading-edge technologies. Our areas of expertise include special intelligence missions, data operations, systems integration, software modernization, and offensive cyber that informs defensive cyber solutions. Across Nightwing, we deliver cybersecurity and intelligence solutions spanning all domains globally. Nightwing. We don't just work on the cutting edge, we create it.
Welcome to the stage, Chris Jones, Chief Technology Officer, Nightwing.
Thank you all for being here today. At Nightwing, we believe that events like the Intelligence and National Security Summit are vital for forging and supporting meaningful partnerships. Here, we have the unique opportunity to exchange ideas with leaders across the government, military, industry, and academia. Our collaboration and cooperation are what make it possible for this very special community of patriots to foresee and to mitigate the many complex threats on the global stage right now. A heartfelt thank you to AFCEA and INSA for making it possible for all of us to be here today. My organization, Nightwing, is particularly proud to be a sponsor of today's event and to play a small part in advancing our national security efforts. We know that the path forward depends on engaging the full intelligence community to deliver innovative solutions that safeguard our way of life. This afternoon, for our fireside chat session, we are pleased to have the Honorable Chris Scolese, Director of the National Reconnaissance Office. We also welcome the Honorable Kari, Director of the Aerospace Security Project and Senior Fellow with the Defense and Security Department. I think we can all look forward to an engaging and thoughtful discussion, so please join me now in welcoming Kari Bingen and Dr. Chris Scolese.
We're going to take a picture here.
Yes, picture time again.
Thank you.
Great.
All right.
Thanks.
Okay. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I recognize we're the last panel of the day, but I'm pretty excited about this one. And it's a pleasure to welcome Dr. Chris Scolese, Director of the National Reconnaissance Office, to the stage. I want to thank INSA, AFCEA, Chris, for that great introduction. I first met Chris, I think it was in 2018, as you were going through the nomination process to be the 19th Director of the NRO. We have a lot of ground that I want to cover in the next 45 minutes. NRO architectures and future plans, strategic competition with China, the state of our industrial base and the role of the commercial sector, threats and protection, the increased role of NRO in major DoD initiatives, and how those in the room and your companies and organizations can help. So as you've been doing all day, please go ahead and submit those questions and I will get them up here on the iPad. First, I want to talk people and workforce. Because you and I have talked in the past, I put it last, but I want to put it first today because you have just a tremendous workforce. So talk through where yet, are you hiring? Actually, I have some former students in the audience here. But recruitment, retention, what that workforce for you looks like today and where you're taking it into the future with many of the technology trends that were discussed today.
Yeah, thanks, Kari, and it's good to be back here with you again. And thanks for saying that we have a fantastic workforce, because we really do. And as many of you know, it's a blended workforce. We have three principal groups. We have the military, the CIA, and what we call cadre. And in fact, next month will be the 10th anniversary of the founding of the cadre. So it's been, a very good thing that the government allowed us to go off and do. Of course, our recruiting is on the cadre side, but we also go off and talk on the military and the CIA. And we get great support from the military and the CIA. But I'll talk about cadre, because that's what you're talking about. Writ large, the NRO workforce is fantastic. When it comes to recruiting, we're doing we really don't have a problem in recruiting. We have a very exciting mission. We can't talk about it a lot, but we can give people an idea about what we do. And we tend to focus on really three things. The first is the mission, and what can beat the mission about developing satellite systems to go off and protect our nation, provide the information that's needed by not only the warfighter, but by the policymaker and by analysts and by civil organizations. That's exciting in and of itself. Second thing is we're working on space, and we want people who can bring in new ideas, new innovative ideas, because we have to stay ahead of our competitors, wherever they may be. So we talk about the areas that we want to go off and do, particularly some of the more challenging ones. We've been working in artificial intelligence for a long time because, as I've talked about many times, we've shifted to a more proliferated architecture. Well, you don't want to go off and task a satellite when you have 100 satellites. You want to ask a question. So we need to go off and look at that. We know that our user community wants information faster. So we have to go off and find ways to do data manipulation to deliver it faster. And then we need better sensors. We need better computers on our spacecraft. We need to go into really high-tech areas like quantum sensing, which many of you may have heard me talk about in the past. It's one of my favorites because it is far-flung, but it's something that we're going to need to do if we're going to stay ahead of competitors. So that's the second thing, a really exciting mission in space with high technology. And then the third, and they get it with the blended workforce, if we can invite them to meet, as we often do when they come in for internships, they see the collegiality of the workforce, how they're all working towards that mission, how they're in an exciting place where everybody's opinions and thoughts are considered and utilized. So we haven't had really a challenge. We've had as the whole government did, we had a hiring freeze for a while, but we're in a limited hiring right now. Again, we're doing well. So I imagine you may have seen already, but if not, you will be seeing advertisements again for our intern program next year, as well as opportunities to come and work at the NRO.
Okay, so superb people. Now let's talk about some of the things that will be on their plate in the years ahead. During my time on the Hill, we always talked about follow the money and read the budget justification books that were sent to Congress. So there are people that read those. But this year in the Space Force's FY26 budget request, there is over $8 billion for, quote, long-range kill chains with the DoD-led Moving Target Indicator Project, continuing to leverage the National Reconnaissance Office partnership to develop and field the U.S. Space Force GMTI space system. So to the extent that you can talk about this, what is the NRO doing in this area? And what are some of the big challenges that you need to tackle to deliver those capabilities? And what do you need from the folks here in the room?
Well, we need your support and your ideas to go off and do it. So there's, the NRO has been involved with MTI throughout its life, actually. The thing is, though, the competitors have gotten better. They're more mobile, and we're talking about working in more denied areas. So we have to develop a system that, with our partners, with the Space Force, in this particular case, that can deal with all of those things. And we're working very, very closely with the Space Force. That means we have to develop a system that is responsive to the needs that we have. Since we're talking about denied areas, we're not going to be able to have aircraft, the wonderful aircraft that are there, that have supported us for so long. So we have to respond faster. We have to deliver information faster, which means we have gone to a proliferated architecture or an architecture that allows more dwell over a target, so more persistence. You put those two together and we can do much of the mission that was done by airborne platforms. We can't do all of the mission that the airborne platforms have done. Just the fact of the altitude and physics. But we're doing more and more of it. So where do we need help is taking in all of that data, because when you have a proliferated architecture, satellite 1 sees one thing, satellite 2 sees something, and then satellite N sees something. They're looking in the same region, but it's going to look different each time they get there. How do you stitch all that data together in a very efficient way? We're going to need to constantly be looking at our sensors to make sure that they can't be jammed, that we can deliver the data through all phases of conflict. It's easy to do it when everything is fine. It's harder to do it when you're in crisis or conflict, when they're taking active measures. So we're going to need, help in those areas. And as I said, we're constantly innovating. We need to do more and more, not only to make the data that we're bringing down today useful, but to make the data that we bring down in the future not only useful, but better. So we need a lot of engagement on that. And you have to, I think, also understand that we're doing this with the Space Force. We're working very, very closely with them. There's the principal users of it, but we also know others are using it as well. So it has a broader application than just MTI.
Okay, you mentioned 100 satellites. When you and I last had the chance to talk, it was last October at CSIS, you had discussed a generational change occurring in our overhead ISR architecture and had said that by the end of 2024, NRO would probably have launched about 100 satellites. So we're almost a year later. Where are you at on that, and where is that going?
So we've launched over 200 satellites, and we're going to be launching several more, hopefully on Monday. Weather has delayed us, so we're imminent to launch, even more satellites in less than a week, and then we have more, yet to go this year. So we're making very, very good progress on the proliferated architecture. But when I talk about 200 satellites, it's not just part of the proliferated architecture. It's across all of our activities. It's not just the proliferated constellation. It's in all of our phenomenologies. It's in all of our directorates. And it includes research satellites as well, where we're put up. I was just talking about the technologies that we need. We're off testing the technologies that we're going to need in 4 or 5 years. They're on a couple of satellites called Big Impact that are testing autonomous operations of space systems where they can make decisions. We've got integrated circuits and detection capabilities on those that we're testing in space, so that we've gone over the challenge of demonstrating that it can be worked in space. And the thing that's significant about that is it's open to all of you. Every year or twice a year, we go out for calls. We now have opened that to an unclassified day as well as a classified day. We just had our last one for this year earlier in September. Day 1 was unclassified and day 2 was the typical classified day, where we invite, and anybody can come to it, but they have to tell us they're coming. We've had a lot of new entrants as well as the traditional ones. And in each of those sessions, we explain what it is that we think we need, because you want to know what it is. And at the same time, we have individual meetings with each of the organizations, and they can be universities or companies of any size, for them to tell us what they think would be really good ideas that we should consider. And then from there, we put out a solicitation. Many of those companies and organizations propose, and we partner, and some of those get to fly, others get to test their software, and others are brass boards on the ground that we go off and evaluate. So there's many opportunities to come in and work with us.
Well, and I want to foot stomp what you said and commend the NRO workforce and your industry partners. The fact that you are at 200-something satellites and growing today, and launched about 100 in the last year, is phenomenal. We've talked for years of moving away from these few exquisite Battlestar Galacticas to these proliferated architectures, and you're doing it in government. Can you reflect for a moment on some of those lessons learned to be able to do those, the production, the operations at speed and scale, which we're trying to adopt more universally across the Space Force and within government?
Certainly. I would say number one, it's the partnerships with the organizations that are involved. Number two, it's taking advantage of commercial capabilities. And then it's also recognizing that some aspects of whatever it is that you're doing have to be designed a certain way because you want a specific capability. And you have to go to the right organization to get that done. Doesn't mean that it's decided what that organization is, but there has to be a specification that the government puts out. I think the big thing that we have learned and has made us successful in doing this is recognizing that when you buy a commercial product, you are buying a product that is designed, developed for a certain application, and you need to adapt to that product as opposed to making that product adapt to you. And why do I say that? Well, there's a number of reasons why that's a good thing. One is you went to that commercial company because you believe that their product is valuable and can meet the mission at some percentage, right? 80, 90, percent, maybe 100% can meet your requirements. So that's a good thing. If you change it, you've changed what they've done. You've decreased its reliability. You've decreased its ability to meet your mission. You've probably disrupted their supply chains. You've done a lot of things. So one of the things we do is we take their product and we adapt to it. So when we talk about the thing that we need, the sensor, whatever organization is doing that, we say, you must work with that interface or set of interfaces, whatever it may be. And it's worked very, very well. It's allowed us to bring the costs down by close to an order of magnitude for a number of these systems. Otherwise, you couldn't do a proliferated architecture. And at the same time, we're seeing very good reliability. And there's other things that one has to consider when you do a commercial product. There are now limitations in how you operate it, but the benefit is you've got more of them up there and you're delivering the information that's needed. And now let's talk about the advantages. When you have a proliferated architecture, it allows you to revisit the target faster, so you're delivering the information that the user needs in the time span that the user needs it. Second, you've reduced the cost. Third, you have the opportunity now to learn with each launch, which we did with the more exquisite systems, but the cycle time was much longer. By the time my rule of thumb is no two identical spacecraft are the same. And that's pretty close to the way it really, worked with the exquisite ones, but you upgraded those every 5 years or every 10 years. Here, we can learn very quickly. When you launch, as we did, 200 satellites in roughly 24, 30 months, you've seen how they work. You can go back because you're building the next one, and you can make adjustments. You can add capability. And then the other thing that you do, the other big thing besides adding capability, you're adding resilience. It now changes the calculus of any adversary that wants to prevent you from doing your job. In the past, with a few satellites, they could build a few cheap things to go off and destroy your satellites. When you have 100 of something, now they're cheaper than the thing you want to use to destroy the satellite. They have to adjust to what you're doing. And we've seen that. So we've learned a lot in developing this. And at the same time with commercial, not everything has to be proliferated, right? We've found that the commercial satellite builders build very good satellites. They're very capable. So they can serve other missions that don't necessarily have to be in the proliferated ones. So we're finding advantages there as well. So it doesn't mean that commercial equals proliferated. It means commercial gives us an opportunity to do things in a more efficient manner.
Well, and we've talked largely about the satellite proliferation. The other generational change that you've hinted at is what's happening on the ground, or that processing and analysis and distribution architecture. Everything from collection, orchestration, to, you mentioned data fusion across dozens to hundreds of satellites, to how do you get data to the right user, at the edge. So what's changing here on the ground side? Maybe what's not changing fast enough, and how is the culture adapting to those changes?
Yeah, there's always challenges and change. The thing that we have always been asked for throughout the history of the NRO is to deliver more information and deliver it faster. Deliver at the speed of need, if you will. And that involves not only your observing systems and what you do there, as you said, it's also the ground processing. How quickly can you take the data from the satellite, process it, and distribute it to the user? And what we're seeing is there's a number of things. Obviously, you have to have the observing system in the right places, collecting the data that you need at the speed that you need it. You have to have a communication system which is necessary to handle it. So that's terrestrial as well. So we need terrestrial networks as well as space networks to deliver that information as quickly as possible to the point that's needed, either where you're doing the processing or where you're doing the delivery of a final product. So we're working there, and we're working with a number of organizations to get that done. So we need to have very reliable networks to get that done, so that they can work in denied environments as well as working in environments that are under attack. We all know what cyber attacks can do. So we have to have very robust networks on the ground. At the same time, we have to have the processing. And we need people and systems. We've gone to rely very much on cloud-based systems. That gives us a lot of flexibility, a lot of reliability. We have shifted there several years ago, and it's proving to be extremely beneficial for us. We need to use the benefits of artificial intelligence. I've mentioned that before. We need it to control our constellations, make it a lot easier for the user to say, instead of saying satellite X do this, is to say I need this information, and let the system go off and deliver that information. But then still you need to process the data, and this is where we really need the brain power to go off and do it. Artificial intelligence is great, but if you want to do it at speed and at scale, you have to design your systems around the data. You know, how quickly is the data coming down? What formats is the data in? Do you want to fuse that data with anything else? And then, and only then, can you put together a product that's going to be delivered in the time that you need. And ultimately, people would like take the image, do whatever else you need, and as soon as it hits the ground, you've got a product to the user. We're not quite there yet, but you know, we have to be able to deliver it in, you know, it used to be days, then it was hours, you know, and now we're talking, you know, minutes and less. So that's where we're off working. So yeah, the ground systems, and we're in the process of investing even more on the ground system side to do what I just talked about, process the data and deliver it faster, disaggregate our data centers just like we're disaggregating our spacecraft, and developing reliable communications networks so that we can get the data to the data centers and get the data out to wherever the user is.
Okay. I want to come back to commercial here, and there have been reports that funding for commercial remote sensing data and services is being cut. Meanwhile, China is moving quite fast in its own, I'll use commercial in air quotes, but commercial satellite imagery offerings. So can you share any insights with us today, any changes in thinking, acquisition strategy, funding, and then how are you looking at those commercial services and capabilities and how you integrate them into your government architectures?
Certainly. As I mentioned before, commercial is very important to us, and it's really in three areas. It's those commercial products like the commercial satellites that we were just talking about. It's commercial launch, which has really driven down the cost of launch. And it's the commercial data providers, as we were just talking about. Since you know, we started this program about 5 years ago, we've gone from 1 or 2 providers to over 13 in various stages of development, from companies that have an idea that they want to go off and pursue, that we're talking, and that's more of the, this is what they want to do, this is what we need, and you know, how can we work together, to you know, very mature companies that have a product, have satellites in space, and can deliver products. And our big contract is the EOCL contract, which is for electro-optical imagery. That's the one that you're talking about, that's had the budget cut. But we also have it in radar, electro-optical, and RF are the ones that have systems on orbit. And then we have others that are getting close, that are developing other phenomenologies. And we see great value in it, so much so that we have adjusted our constellation, the exquisite systems as well as the proliferated systems, assuming that commercial is there. So we are relying on commercial. It is integral to our present, and even more integral to our future, because as we're building new systems, we have taken as a given that there will be commercial capability there. At the same time, you know, one of the things that has to be measured is how much is it used, and that has to be measured, and things have to be adjusted. We're in that discussion phase right now as we're going forward. But the main thing, the most important thing, is that commercial across the board, but in this case, commercial systems are absolutely critical. They are part of our architecture, and we're going to continue to rely on them.
That's really important. I'm just thinking back to an opportunity to play in a space war game a few years ago, and for the first time they brought in a commercial space cell, and the way they wanted the commercial operators to report on their capabilities was, how many satellites do you have? what's your footprint, how many images can you collect, and when you see the evolution of technology marrying those sensors with all the data and the analytics, AI processing that you talked about, it's a different value proposition, and so it's harder for the government. How do the government think about buying that, not just images per pass or something?
No, that's exactly right, and it's being played more and more in the war games, as you know. And it's a more sophisticated conversation than those, because I remember those early days as well. Yeah. Right? It's a much more sophisticated conversation. They are playing a significant role.
Well, and then the other dimension of those war games that comes to bear is the threat landscape. So if I can start interweaving questions from the audience, there's a question on giving the evolving threat landscape, and I'd ask you to comment on the threats that you see that are most significant to the NRO mission. How is the NRO prioritizing intelligence collection in contested regions like the Indo-Pacific or low Earth orbit?
Well, I mean, we collect everywhere, and we have to find a way to do it. We all know what the threats are. When I put the threats for the NRO, my number one concern is cyber still. The fact that we have a proliferated architecture, that we go off and do what we can to protect our architecture, either ourselves or with our partners in Space Force, or by relying on our partners, like our commercial partners and international, to go off and supplement our capabilities or enhance our capabilities, is really critical. But the one area where any adversary, because the cost of admission is relatively cheap, is in the cyber area. So we remain, very much concerned about that. So we're investing in and appreciate ideas in, how we can be, more effective and protect our systems. We're doing a good job, but we know that this is the threat that never changes. It's one of those things that tomorrow there's going to be a different threat, and we have to adapt to it. So we have to adapt very, very quickly, and thus the investment in that, thus that being the concern. The other area that we have a concern is the integrity of our supply chain. We have to build satellites, we have to build ground systems, and we want to make sure that the parts that we buy will do what we want them to do and don't have any challenges associated with them. Again, we have a very good supply chain management. We work with all of our vendors. We share information about where there's concerns. But it still requires vigilance for us to go off and do it, and to consider where our supplies are coming from. And you can think of some of the challenges we have. Rare earth metals, right? China has most of those. The U.S. fortunately is working to go off and expand our reach, and so are our allies. So we need to very much consider what's going on in the supply chain. And then there's the physical threats. I mean, our competitors, obviously Russia and China, but other countries have developed ASATs and demonstrated them, and they have worked. As I said earlier, once you start proliferating your architecture and disaggregating, they become less effective, but they're still effective, and they still can create challenges. And there's in-space threats that we have to go off and deal with. So we're working our way through the threat environment, and we're being very proactive in developing our systems to be resilient, and we're working with our partners, principally in the Space Force, but international and others, to further increase our capabilities and our resilience.
Well, and in successive DoD military power reports about China, it's been believed that China might go after our C4ISR capabilities early in a conflict. I mean, we saw Russia's first shot in Ukraine. It wasn't tanks across the border. It was going after a satellite via cyber means. So as you look at the not just those threat assessments, but those real world examples? Are there particular lessons that you're drawing from those that even further amplify some of those items that you laid out for protection?
Well, absolutely. I mean, we're very much watching what's going on in all the conflicts around the globe, and who is doing what and what's going on. And your example is just one of the many reasons why cyber is so important. Cybersecurity is such an important aspect of what we're doing in terms of protection.
Good. I'm going to jump around a bit. There's another question here. What role do small satellites and rapid launch capabilities play in the future of reconnaissance? So small satellites and rapid launch.
Well, rapid launch clearly allows us to reconstitute very quickly. And, in the last 5 years, we have launched, outside of the normal launch sites, right? We've launched from many sites, and that probably, around the globe, right? So that's, a pretty strong indication that we need flexibility. So it allows us to do reconstitution. It also gives us the opportunity to have more launch opportunities for our systems. Small satellites play an important role from research to providing actionable data, and we just have to go off and develop it. Again, our view is, what does the user need, and how can we best satisfy what the user needs? And in all cases, physics wins, but not everything requires large systems. And not everything requires small systems. And so far, I think we've done a pretty good job of balancing those.
And you've hit on several themes so far that speak to perhaps a different approach to how we look at classification. So everything from bringing more non-traditional entrants in to leveraging more and more commercial capabilities and putting more systems up to more integrating with the warfighter. How are you looking at, I'll say, NRO classification? And not everything is at that most exquisite or highest level anymore. And you have to be able to share rapidly information at a variety of different levels, including with international partners. So how are you looking at that aspect?
Now you're getting to the really hard questions. Because it's
well, I need more audience questions.
And that's a bit out of ours. But yeah, I mean, we want to deliver and work at the lowest classification level that we can. There are certain things that we simply have to protect. Any vulnerabilities in our systems are clearly things that we need to protect. The secret sauce, if you will, about our things, we must protect. But our goal has been to work at the lowest classification level that we can.
Well, and I appreciate you even as director have been out talking about what you do. Obviously, there's a lot of really cool stuff you can't talk about, but even just letting industry, letting these new entrants know, what you're up to, what your priorities are, is important to bring in those new and innovative ideas. We'll go back to technology, forget classification policy here, but how is NRO using AI in its missions? Are large language models and generative AI used for analysis? Is AI used to enhance security of space assets? So the AI theme has been continuous throughout the day. How does NRO leverage AI?
Well, first thing is, we build satellites, collect information. We don't actually do the analysis. That's our partners, NGA, NSA, CIA, the various organizations that do that. Our job is to get the data and deliver it in the format that they want. So we use AI a lot. We use it everywhere from our personnel systems, to help us, streamline what's going on there in our financial systems, as I'm sure many of you do in your companies or organizations. And we also use it, to put the data in those formats in a way that can be done quickly if they need to look at particular things. We also use it to, monitor our constellations, right? And to help us better use, to help the user community better use our constellations. At one time, you had to, think about an individual satellite to do something. Where we want to go to, we're not there yet, but we're working to get there, is ask a question. I want to know how many ships are in the Taiwan Strait. That would be the question, and then the system could go off and do it. So we're working it to manage our constellation, help us with supply chains, look for patterns in suppliers where there's, issues that may happen, because, everything, runs into a challenge every once in a while. To look at our networks to see what's going on there, and to help us do, the routine business things so that we can be, much more efficient in how we operate.
Well, and between large language models and agentic AI, one of the things that's so striking to me is you can bring together data sources from a variety of different phenomenologies into one place, which I'll go on a little bit of a limb here. When you can start bringing together the INSA, I mean, it shakes things up in terms of the traditional, I'll say, functional management roles of GeoINT, SIGINT, MASINT, et cetera. What does that portend for the future of what our intelligence community does and what these agencies do? I mean, are we at a point now where we may very well in the near term see, I guess I say, a revolution in these areas for the mission?
I think you're talking about something that's, really portends great things for the future, but I'm probably not the right person to answer the question.
But from a technology perspective,
from a technology perspective, you certainly can do
how close
that.
are we?
From what we can see, right, and I'm sure people out in the audience can see, the potential is there, right, today to go off and do those things. We're seeing it in many other fields.
Although I'll say I play with ChatGPT 5.0, and some of the answers I get still look like a college essay, so not quite there. But it's moving so fast that I wonder, how much time do we really have?
How much time before? Yeah, I play with them too, so yeah.
Well, and that ties into another question here. So then taking a step back just from AI or LLMs, overall, let's nerd out here. What are those emerging technologies that are likely to shape the future of space-based intelligence over the next decade? So as you look out 10 years from now, what are those technologies you're looking at?
Well, certainly what we just talked about, AI. I would say, being able to deal with large volumes of data, that's certainly AI, but it's also, developing data models and data structures that will allow us to do it. The other areas that I see that we really need is in communications. Clearly, as we're bringing down more data, we need to be able to deliver that data more effectively, and it's larger volumes. It may be coming from end platforms as opposed to a smaller number of platforms, but still we need to develop communication systems and communication systems that can't be disrupted. So very reliable communication systems. We're looking at optical communications, as is everybody. But it's, the algorithms, the coding schemes that are there to provide us greater assurance that we're going to deliver the product. Sensors, that's what the NRO does, right? Our job is to see it, hear it, sense it. And that's three things, right? Seeing it and hearing it, we all know what that is. Sensing it brings in other senses that we need to go off and do. And to that end, we need to start looking at, different sensing technologies or different sensor networks that deliver different things. The one that I believe has the greatest potential to not only revolutionize, but also has the greatest potential to be there in 5 or 10 years, are some of the quantum sensing techniques that are out there that can go off and allow us to more precisely and detect things. And I'm intentionally saying things because in the quantum realm you're looking for something a little bit different. before, and you're going to need to be able to process that information and turn it into an image, or turn it into a voice, or turn it into a signal, or whatever it is that you're looking for. It provides us, with a lot of opportunities there. At the same time, I mentioned communications. Quantum communications is an area that is probably a little bit closer than some of the quantum sensing that we need to go off and work on. So those are some of the areas, and the opportunity I've had talking with some of our interns recently, and walking around talking to some of the companies that are here today. There's lots of really, really good ideas that we really want to go off and work with you and with our interns, bring them in so that they can go off and develop those capabilities.
So I have two more questions for you. The first is, what are you doing in response to increasing traffic and crowding in low Earth orbit? Really interesting.
Yeah, low Earth orbit is getting more crowded. It used to be, 10 years ago, and certainly 20 years ago, it was very rare to talk about the probability of a conjunction. Not necessarily a collision, but the probability that a piece of an object would get close to you in space, whether it was debris or another satellite. 5 years ago, it was not rare, and it was something that we talked about and would maneuver, but there was a conscious effort to do it. Now we're looking at it every day. It's part of our normal operations. So, and it is part of all satellite operators' normal operations in low Earth orbit. So it's something we have to be very, very conscious about. So space domain awareness is something that's become, a very important aspect that all of us, very much rely on. Now that's not something that the NRO does, but it's something that we're a user of that information, as are all the satellite providers. So yeah, low Earth orbit has gotten crowded, and it's required us to do things, but we're doing it well. And I think in the early days, we, not the NRO, but the community at large, had some challenges. But you're seeing that we're doing, as a community, much, much better.
Okay. So my last question for you is going to be a bit of a reflection, and I go back to when I came into the Pentagon in 2017. My predecessor had said, Kari, think about the three big rocks, the three big things that you would like to see accomplished on your watch, and be dogged about them. Things are going to, rocks and other things are going to be thrown your way, but think about those three big things. So you've been director of the NRO for over 6 years now. As you look at the organization and what your organization is accomplishing, what are those three big things?
So I would say, in no particular order, one was invigorating the cadre and bringing in those really brilliant people. The cadre has grown, from a small number of people to a lot. I can't say those numbers. By at least an order of magnitude, which is really critical, and they're brilliant people. I would say, the other is getting the focus on utilizing different capabilities. Being innovative, recognizing the value of commercial, recognizing that other people have great ideas, and also that our people have great ideas, and we need to give them an opportunity to go off and do that. And I think we've done that. And then the other is to deliver on that. And I think we're in the process of delivering now that we have, 200 plus satellites up there. And we have some capabilities up there that I would love to talk to you about that are just fantastic. So I think those are the three big things that I would pick, that I was looking at when I came in, and actually probably when I talked to you, because one of those was one you told me to go fix.
Your team has done it all on your own, so I can't take any credit for that. But we are out of time. Chris, thank you so much. This has been a tremendous conversation, and thank you for the leadership that you've carried through at NRO through this period of real generational change, as you've said. So appreciate all that you do and will continue to do.
Thank you, Kari.
Thank you, Kari, for leading such an insightful discussion. Thank you, Dr. Scolese, as always, for your candor and for your partnership with our organizations, AFCEA and INSA. Really appreciate it. We're going to get a couple of photos for you.
Okay.
And then before we head to the reception, I have a couple of notes about tomorrow's schedule, which we invite Dr. Scolese to come back. I'm sure he'd love to come back and spend time here. We'll begin at 8 a.m. with breakfast and networking, 9 a.m. the opening plenary on, and this is not one to miss, service intelligence priorities with representation from each of the services, their military intelligence leadership.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And from 8 to 10 a.m., we are going to be hosting our annual Cleared Jobs Fair in partnership with Clearance Jobs. This was a very successful event last year, and we got a lot of tremendous, grateful feedback from people who worked with Clearance Jobs at that. Cleared Job Fair tomorrow, 8 to 10 a.m. It's a valuable opportunity for cleared professionals looking to advance their careers and for organizations eager to connect with top talent. Other sessions tomorrow include Homeland Defense, Redefining National Security, Signals in the Noise. I want to talk about that, redefining national security, when it's in the afternoon. You know how the old trick of a conference that ends on a Friday afternoon, you save the best to last? We did the old trick. It's, by golly, it's going to be my favorite, and we've had great sessions today. Signals in the Noise, AI, OSINT, and Operational Advantage, and a great panel on cyber threats to operational technology we're ending with the new defense industrial base. Is that right? Yes. So redefining national security is earlier in the day. The new defense industrial base is in the afternoon. That's the brilliant one. For now, please join us right outside this ballroom for a networking reception sponsored by Moody's. Thank you, Moody's, to relax, reconnect, and keep these conversations going. See you all tomorrow.